Set to host the lowly Washington Nationals this weekend, this isn't just a must-win series for the Mets, it's a must-sweep series for the Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein, covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Go to www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Now, the New York Mets need to win this weekend. It's already one thing that they're going to be playing the Nationals, who are not a very good baseball team. But you look at this wild card race. You got the Reds playing against the Cubs. You got the Giants playing against the Dodgers, and the Diamondbacks are going to host the Phillies. Each of these teams that are chasing you are playing really good baseball teams. There's a good chance that they're going to lose some games this weekend. And the Mets right now sit with a magic number of 8. So if they just sweep the Nationals, they got a magic number of 5 going into next week. If the Diamondbacks and the Reds each drop 2 games this weekend, they got a magic number of 3 going into next week. And then, doesn't matter what everybody else does. All you got to do is win 3 games against the Cubs and the Marlins. You need a 500 final week, and you're in. If everybody wins the whole weekend, well, for one, you got to keep pace. But even if everybody wins every game, you go into the next week, and if the Mets win 3 games, and again, the Reds and the Diamondbacks each lose 2 of their final 6 games, you're in. This is a huge weekend for the Mets, finishing off their home slate against the Nationals. And we're going to talk about that series more in the next segment. But first, let's go through the wild card update. I did a live stream after the game with Jonah Tong delivering a really strong performance, and the Mets lineup continuing to swing the bats well. So if you want to get any recap of that game or also hear my take on Jonah Tong's potential playoff role for the New York Mets, definitely check out that live stream. I told you on the stream that I was going to talk about the wild card race today and give you an update once we knew what happened with the night games as the Reds and the Giants both played. So the Reds got a brilliant pitching performance by Hunter Greene as he gave up a single hit across 9 scoreless innings against the Cubs. That's right. He pitched a 1-hit shutout, and the Reds won 1-0. Hunter Greene is a scary man right now, and the Reds have the ability to pitch him on 4 days rest on Tuesday, which they should absolutely do because that would set him up to pitch a potential Game 162 if it matters. So the Reds are looking pretty scary. We'll see what happens throughout the rest of this weekend. 3 more games, obviously, against the Cubs in this 4-game set, all of them being played at home. The Cubs are going to throw out their Shota Imanaga tonight, so that's a pretty good pitcher. Then they're going to go to Javier Assad, who's been okay since coming off the injured list, and then Jameson Taillon will finish off the series. The Reds, they got Nick Lodolo going. Then they have Zach Littell, and then finally Andrew Abbott. Their best 2 pitchers right now, though, have been Hunter Greene and Brady Singer, and Singer is not going in this series. Obviously, Greene just went. So the hope is the Reds maybe drop 2 of those 3 games against the Cubs, and that give the Mets an opportunity to pick up even more ground or to get a bigger lead against the Reds, who do own the tiebreaker over the Mets. Now, the final week of the season, again, the Reds are going to host the Pirates, and then they're going to play the Brewers in Milwaukee, but the Brewers at that point might have nothing left to play for but home field advantage over the Phillies, and they're not going to go all out just to get home field. Once they have the bye locked up, which should come very soon for both the Brewers and the Phillies, they're going to be sort of shutting it down. So I think that the Reds are a really scary team because they could have a very easy final week. That's why the Mets have to make sure they keep on winning games. Now, the Giants lost, and so the Giants are really fading from this race. They lost 2-1, so the most wins the Giants can now get to is 85. The Mets have the tiebreaker over the Giants. So now the tragic number for the Giants is down to 6. Because if the Mets win 6 more games, regardless of what the Giants do, they would get to 85 wins and they have the tiebreaker, so that would be it. So the Giants right now are looking like less and less of a threat. Granted, they also have what could be a easier final week with the Cardinals and the Rockies coming to San Francisco to close out their season. But they got to finish off this series against the Dodgers first, and the Dodgers got Tyler Glass now going. They got Clayton Kershaw going after he just announced that he will be retiring after this season. So this will be a very emotional start for Kershaw, who will be making his final start in the regular season at Dodger Stadium. If he doesn't start in the wild card round, potentially his last start wearing a Dodgers uniform. So that's going to be must-watch TV. It's Apple TV, the game. It'll be Robbie Ray versus Kershaw for the first game. Then you got Glass now. There's no other list of pitchers for the Giants. Emmett Sheehan, who's been pretty good, will be going on Sunday. So the Giants got their work cut out for them. The Diamondbacks did not play, so the Mets were able to gain a half a game on them. And if you look at what they got over the weekend against the Phillies, unfortunately, it's Taijuan Walker and Aaron Nola going in the first 2 games of this series. The Diamondbacks have Ryan Nelson, who's been very good this year, 3.34 ERA, and Zach Gallen, who's been much better since the trade deadline. So they have the ingredients to be able to upset the Phillies over the weekend, but the Phillies haven't been playing great baseball. Now that I'm looking at the pitching matchups, maybe I was wrong earlier this week wanting the Diamondbacks to beat the Giants, because at the time my thought process was, well, the D-backs still have to go up against the Dodgers, and then they finish off their season against the Padres. So they still had collectively, I think, the toughest schedule from here on out. But now this Giants team is free-falling a little bit, and the Diamondbacks are looking a little bit scarier. Bottom line for the New York Mets, you just have to win your games. It's that simple. You take care of business this week, you go into the final week of the season with a magic number of at least 5. And again, if you get even just 1 loss from the Diamondbacks and the Reds, that magic number is 4. Where 2 losses from those teams, 2 wins for the Mets, they're in. 3 wins for the Mets, 1 loss from both of those teams in the final week, they're in. So it really is in the Mets' hands, but they cannot slip this weekend, and that is what we're going to talk about next. We're going to preview this series, not a must-win series, again, a must-sweep series for the New York Mets. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love about 5 Hour Energy is just how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. My favorite flavor is the blue raspberry, but there's so many great flavors to choose from, whether it's the cherry, the berry, the apple bash, the peach mango, so much more. Go to the website, see all the different flavors they have, or just go to any gas station, any convenience store. You will, of course, find those 5 Hour Energy shots. And honestly, what's great about them is how fast they kick in. And sugar-free means no crash. So you don't have the crash of those sugary energy drinks or that big, large cup of coffee with all the pumps of cream and sugar. 5 Hour Energy is not boring. It's not flavorless caffeine. It is caffeine that gives you a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store or online at www.5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. We're still about 500 away with only about, 10 weeks, or 10 weeks. I wish it was 10 weeks, 10 days left in the 2025 season. Would love to get to 15,000 by the end of the year. Really do appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. Let's talk about this series. The Washington Nationals are brutal this year. Let me get their full season record. because that's going to be a lot worse than the record I pulled, which is what they've done in the month of September. They are the bottom dweller of this division. They're sitting at 62-91 on the season, 31-47 at home, 31-44 on the road, a little bit better on the road. But that's just a team that just has not been very good all season. Although in September, they have a winning record. They're 9-8 because they start off the month 7-1. Since then, they've lost 7 of their last 9 games, and they just got swept by the Braves in a 4-game set. Offensively, Josh Bell has been their best hitter over the last couple weeks. Got a 974 OPS and 4 home runs over the last 12 games played. Actually, it's either him or rookie Dalen Lyle, who has been their other best hitter recently. He's hitting 358 with a 1.160 OPS, 3 home runs, 1 double, and 5 triples in his last 14 games played. Dylan Cruz swinging a pretty good bat as well with a 791 OPS, but the rest of the lineup has not done much, particularly CJ Abrams and James Wood, who are both in extended slumps here. And you got one of the worst bullpens in baseball. So you look at this Nationals team, they're not really going to ambush you with too many runs. At least typically they aren't. Their bullpen's awful. And their starting rotation is not too great either. You look at the pitching matchups, and I think the Mets have the edge in each and every one of these games. The first one, Brandon Sproat versus Andrew Alvarez, a pair of lefties. You do look at the numbers, and Andrew Alvarez has been very good in 3 starts, a 1.15 ERA. But you look at each individual start. First one came against the Marlins. Not a great lineup right now. He gave just 1 run over 5 innings pitched. Second start goes up against the Cubs, gets knocked out of the game in the 5th inning, 4 2/3. So he gave up 2 earned runs. So that was the best lineup that he faced, and he couldn't make it through 5. Then he goes up against the Pirates and goes 6 scoreless, only giving up 3 hits. So it's tough to tell exactly what Andrew Alvarez is, but in AAA, his ERA is over 4. This is a soft-tossing lefty. Obviously, the Mets have never seen him before, but you do think that this is the type of guy they should be able to handle. You got Brandon Sproat going for his 3rd big league start. He's looked very good in the first 2, so I like where the Mets are at in this game. Granted, their bullpen, they had to use all the leverage guys to get through the game on Thursday with the W, but hopefully they could score a bunch of runs on Andrew Alvarez and pitch some of those guys they just recently called up, or they called up yesterday with Wander Suero, Huascar Brazoban, and Chris Devansky. Ideally, that would be the pathway for the Mets in this one. On Saturday, Nolan McLean Day. He's going up against Cade Cavalli. Cavalli, a former top prospect, another rookie. He's got a 4.76 ERA and 8 starts this season. He has had a couple good ones, but he's been very inconsistent. Does have really good stuff. But he's also right now, I think, on a little bit of a pitch limit, because you look at his pitches thrown over his last couple starts. He hasn't topped out past 75 and has actually been getting pulled pretty routinely before he even gets to 70 pitches. So you might be able to get him out of the game early. And then again, that bullpen is not very good. Final game of this series, you got Clay Holmes likely to make the start, or Sean Manaea, depending on how they want to do the piggyback. Although Manaea just went on paternity leave, so there is a chance that he does not pitch in this series, and it's just a straight start for Clay Holmes. We'll have to see how that develops over the weekend, if Manaea will make an appearance in that game. Hopefully he does, because that would allow the Mets to potentially have those 2 guys really cover potentially the entire game again. And I just want to see that piggyback one more time, potentially twice down the stretch here of this season. It'd be really good to see if it's something that they might decide to employ going into October with how well it worked this second time they did it, really, because it worked well right before the All-Star break. And then, again, a really good strategy to beat the Padres on Tuesday. Now, the other side of it is Mitchell Parker for the Nationals. And Mitchell Parker has been one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball this year. The left-hander has made 30 starts. He's got a 5.85 ERA. He has picked up 16 losses himself. That's not even how many games. I'm going to look up now and see how many games the Nationals have lost with Mitchell Parker on the mound, because he's routinely given up 6 runs. I mean, him and Jake Irvin, much different than the seasons they had last year. These guys just have not been very good. And I mean, you're looking at a lefty that, while the Mets haven't been great against lefties, I mean, this is a guy they should be able to handle. I'm trying to pull up the game logs real quick. Let's see the record. Surprisingly enough, Mitchell Parker is 8-16, but the Nationals are 13-17 in games that he pitches. So if he doesn't take the loss himself, I guess they typically have a pretty good chance to win. But I mean, you look at everything. The Mets have a significantly better starting lineup than the Nationals. They got better starting pitchers going in each of these games, and their bullpen, while not incredible, it's better than one of the worst bullpens of baseball, which is what the Nationals have. There's no excuses. You got to win this series, and you got to not just win this series. Again, you got to take all these games because the Cubs are going to be a little more difficult to play next week. You're going to be going up against the Cubs at Wrigley Field. That is a playoff team. So this is an opportunity to stack some wins. You got to do it because I'm a lot more scared of the Marlins in Miami than the Nationals at home. And as I've talked about and will continue to talk about as the season winds down, I don't want to see the Mets just back their way into the playoffs. I want to see them win their way into the playoffs, and I want them to lock this thing up potentially before that series against the Marlins even starts, or have that magic number sitting at 1 when you go into that series, because the Mets are in a position right now where it would be amazing if they can just set up their pitching, where they can set everyone in line so that they have the best possible chance to go up against the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium and come out with a series victory at a wild card round, which is not going to be an easy task. So to be able to set things in motion where maybe Nolan McLean doesn't even have to make another start in the regular season, or if it is a start, it could be sort of a tune-up to get him ready to go game 1 of a wild card round. To be able to have Kodai Senga go out there and make a start in a game that doesn't matter, because as we're going to talk about in the final segment here, his next start in Syracuse did not go well tonight. It would be huge for this team to just get the work done early and to carry momentum. That's the other important thing. They did the hard part. They beat the Padres in a series. Now can you capitalize on the Washington Nationals? This year, the Mets have not capitalized on the Washington Nationals enough. They're 6-4 on the season against the Nats. And remember, there was a 4-game series in D.C. where Ryan Stanek blew 2 games where the Mets easily could have swept that 4-game set. In which case, right now, instead of being 6-4, they'd be 8-2. So we'll see what the Mets do with this weekend series, but it's a big one. Every game matters at this point, but particularly finishing off your home slate against a bad team, take advantage and carry that momentum into that last road trip, because we know the Mets have not been very good on the road. So it'd be great if they're carrying momentum instead of dealing with another disappointment. But in the final segment, I want to talk about, speaking of disappointment, a rough start from Kodai Senga, and also an update on the Binghamton Rumble Ponies and their playoffs in AA. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't even name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have that full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending. Finally, you can feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch, and immediately I spotted some subscriptions I was paying for that I forgot about. I also saw how much money I was spending on takeout, things that you just are swiping and not realizing. And then when you get that visualization of your spending, you start to make better decisions. Don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONMLB. If you're an everydayer that always tunes into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways and get a lineup graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Let's talk about Kodai Senga. Kodai Senga's first inning was pretty solid in his second start back in Syracuse. Gave up a bloop single, then got a couple pop-ups and a fly out to get through the inning unscathed. Second inning, bookended by a couple of strikeouts. In between, he got a line out to third and then gave up one hard hit single on the ground that found a hole. But again, a scoreless frame. Third inning, he hits the leadoff man, but then gets a double play ball, gives up another single on the ground before getting an out on a rocket that was hit right at the center fielder, Jose Azocar. Fourth inning, it all fell apart. Gave up another single, hard ground ball that found a hole, issues a walk. Then he picks up a strikeout before giving up a ground rule double that scores one. Gets another strikeout, but he also throws a wild pitch that allows a run to score. And I mean, looking at the play, I thought Hayden Singer, probably should have blocked that ball, but at the same time, just a spiked fork ball and a run comes across. Then he gives up another single, and that scores a third run. He issues a walk and gets pulled. Douglas Orellana comes in. He walks to walking in a run, and that run was attributed to Senga. So all told, Senga goes only 3 2/3, gives up 4 runs on 6 hits and 2 walks, struck out 4. He threw 81 pitches, only 46 of them were for strikes. He did not look confident on the mound, particularly in that fourth inning. Once it started to unravel, all of a sudden you saw Senga wearing it a little bit. You could just tell he didn't feel right. And it's funny because on the live stream yesterday, as you guys are listening to this yesterday, but on the live stream after the game, I talked about the rotation and I talked about just the best 13 guys in the playoffs and how last year the Mets had Kodai Senga starting games in the playoffs when he had only rehabbed one time, had one rehab start, pitched 1 inning before October, and they're throwing him into playoff games. This year, right now, he's fully stretched out. He's reportedly healthy. So the idea that they would not pitch Kodai Senga in the playoffs when right now, if you look at the roster, Edwin Diaz, Tyler Rogers, Brooks Raley, Gregory Soto, Ryan Stanek, Ryan Helsley, those are 6 arms that will be on your playoff roster as your relievers. Noel McLean, Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes, David Peterson. 4 guys who are going to be starters or bulk arms. All of them will be on your playoff roster. Who else fills out the roster? Are you looking for relievers? Are you looking at Huascar Brazaban, Wander Suero, Chris Stavansky, Brandon Waddell, Justin Hagenman? Dylan Ross can't buy a roster spot. He still can't come up. Another scoreless inning for him in Syracuse, but he can't find his way up. And unless they decide to make that call next week, I sort of doubt he's going to be on a playoff roster. So when you really start doing the math, you think about it and you say, all right, well, maybe you just bring all the starting pitchers on your roster. Maybe it is Sproat, Tong, Senga. All of them make a playoff roster. But can you trust Kodai Senga in a playoff game? It's hard to when he can't make it through 2 starts in Syracuse. Looking great. Had a really good first start. This one, not so much. What's the next step for him? Well, he can't start another minor league game. The season in Syracuse ends on Sunday. That's it. They're not going to make the playoffs. There's no other place to put him. Now, you could have him pitch in a sim game so you can collect some of your own minor leaguers and have a sim game next week. Or you find a way to get him into a big league game. But you can't make the decision after what we just watched today, which was Jonah Tong shoving in the big leagues and Kodai Senga struggling in AAA. You can't, view that and say, yeah, we're going to go with Senga over Tong next week. Now, in that series against the Cubs, it's going to be David Peterson, I believe, the first game. He'd be pitching on 5 days rest. Second game would be Jonah Tong. Third game, he has some decisions to make. If you wanted to, you can go to Noel McLean on 4 days rest, which would set him up to pitch the first game of the wild card round on 4 days rest, or the second game of the wild card round on 5 days rest. This is where I'm saying it would be great if you can win a bunch of games now, because it would be more ideal to have McLean, maybe he does pitch that game against the Cubs, but he only throws 60 pitches. And so you sort of pseudo rest him for game 1. You have Brandon Sproat who could pitch on 5 days rest in that game as well. If you need these games, you're going to Sproat, I think, on 5 days rest against the Cubs. And then you're probably going to McLean against the Marlins. And you're figuring it out. Or again, maybe it's McLean Sproat just so you could have so you could have McLean more ready for that wild card round. But if you need these games, I don't think you can throw Senga. So ideally, you get this thing figured out so that Kodai Senga can make a start in Miami. And the cool thing about how you can sort of manipulate this roster is whether it's Brandon Sproat or Jonah Tong, after either of them or both of them makes their starts in that series against the Cubs, you can option them to get fresh arms and then they'll just bring them onto a playoff roster. It really doesn't matter. So that is still something the Mets could do where you can get Kodai Senga up and just see what it looks like. And I think that's always been the plan. But if you need all these games, it's hard to go to them. It really is. So we'll see what the Mets decide to do there, but not a good result, not what they were hoping for. Another thing I wanted to mention before we talk about the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. There is a world where the Mets carry 12 pitchers in that wild card round. So that's the other thing I would say is, let's just say it all works out where you have it locked up and game 162 is started by Kodai Senga and he pitches very well against the Marlins. Well, then you could add him to a playoff roster in the divisional round. And you can go with 12 pitchers in the wild card round, which I'm pretty sure the Mets did last year, so that you can roster an extra player. So that you could roster a Luis Angel Acuna and a Jose Siri if you wanted two speedsters off the bench. You can be a little bit more flexible with your position players and be able to make more subs because you shouldn't really need 13 pitchers for a 3-game series. Yes, this weekend you're going to have 14 pitchers for a 3-game series, but you have starting pitchers that aren't going to be going, right? So in a wild card round where all of the starting pitchers could be on the table, you don't need 13 arms necessarily. But at some point in the playoffs, the hope would have been that Kodai Senga could have a role on this team. But we'll see what he looks like. Like I said, I imagine they get him a start in the big leagues in this upcoming week. But I think at this point, they'd probably want to wait until they have everything locked up before they throw him back out there. Now, let's talk about the Binghamton Rumble Ponies to close out the show because they are moving on to the Eastern League Championship. They swept the Somerset Patriots, which are the Yankees AA affiliate, and they did so behind a gem by Jack Wenninger. Wenninger is part of the next wave. You look at this current group, right? You got Tong, you got Sproat, you got McLean, you have Christian Scott coming off the injured list next year, coming off Tommy John. So all these young guys who are big league ready. Well, next in line, Jonathan Santucci, Jack Wenninger. I mean, there are so many arms. Zach Thornton. You have Will Watson. It's just a team right now that is really loaded with pitching prospects. And Wenninger is really an underrated arm in this system that doesn't get nearly enough love. He made 26 starts all in AA this year. He went 12-6. He pitched to a 2.92 ERA, had a complete game, 135 and 2/3 innings pitched, and he struck out, 147, 1.15 whip. So a great season. And in a big game, he was awesome. 6 scoreless, allowed just 1 hit, 1 walk, struck out 9. You also had a big game from A.J. Ewing, who had an RBI triple in the 3rd and later had an RBI single in the 5th. A.J. Ewing, one of the Mets' top outfield prospects, an absolute burner on the base pass, who had a huge game here. And the Rumble Ponies won 5-4. Ryan Lambert, one of the top relief prospects the Mets had, picked up another save as well. And they are moving on to the Eastern League Championship, which will begin on Sunday. They'll have a day off on Monday, and then they'll finish off the series on Tuesday and Wednesday if it is necessary. But again, the Cyclones won a championship in High A. Now a real chance that the Rumble Ponies can finish off what has been one of the best seasons across all of minor league baseball, arguably the best. I mean, they won 90 games in a 136-game season, and now they've swept their way to the final round here of the playoffs. They won the first half in their league. They won the second half in their league. Now they easily cruise to the championship. It'll be pretty awesome to see them potentially win it. And you'll have 2 teams, High A, Double A, that both will take home championships in the minor leagues. So good stuff there for the Ponies. Anyway, that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. I am going to be going out of town over the weekend, but I'm still going to give you shows, just audio-only shows. You can still find them on YouTube, and they will hit your podcast feed. Just not going to see my face on video, and I'll probably do maybe 2-segment shows instead of full 3-segment shows, but you're still going to have me for a Saturday show, a Sunday show, and on Monday as usual, and then I'll be back home for the rest of the season with your regularly scheduled program after that. And also, I believe Chris Schubert should be doing postcasts all weekend as well. So still plenty of content coming your way. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you don't miss any of it. If you're listening on the audio side, follow, rate, review, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to be Locked On Mets Insider, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen, your first watch every single day. Now for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that'll take you around all the action Major League Baseball with insight from our local experts and league-wide experts that'll take you through all the games. You can find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.